Hello babes, I'm Snow and welcome to my channel. As you can tell by the title of this video, I will be talking about what's wrong with film today. So this is a simple commentary video of what my personal opinions of what is wrong with film today. There's a lot wrong with film today, and if I could, I would make this video 5 hours long. I'm not going to do that, one, because I know our attention spans are not built for that, but also I'm not built to edit a video like that. So we're gonna keep it simple because we all know how I like to ramble. But before we actually start, I want to highlight a couple of my favorite films at the moment, movies that I've watched in the past year or two that I just want to highlight for those who do want to get into film but don't really know where to start or don't really know what to look for. But yeah, I just want to highlight some films, whether it be blockbusters, short film, indie film, just stuff to highlight. Film is still alive, contrary to what I'm going to say for the rest of the movie. I personally feel like indie movies, short films, and microfilms, those filmmakers that make those are really what the heart of film is. I would say, especially as someone who didn't really have a family that grew up watching movies, I had to start watching the classics on my own in like high school to college, and I still haven't watched all of them because there is just so many movies and you only really have so much time after being a teenager that it's like, when can I? But now, starting into the actual commentary, what happened to fun? What happened to fun?
No one's fun anymore. Whatever happened to fun?
No one wants to have fun anymore. I feel like nowadays, especially when it comes to filmmaking and other creative mediums, yes, it's always been for the money, but god damn, these new executives are some money hungry bitches. Not to say that like, oh my god, back in the day we didn't care that movies flopped, but when you truly learn about the history of film, we made films purely for the art, purely for the love of the game. Back when film was actually starting to develop, we weren't doing it for the money. Obviously, like every artistic field nowadays, it does eventually turn into something that is for the money and for businesses and for this, that, and the third. You know, like the music industry. I'm gonna really break down what I mean by this in a second, but as we all kind of have been feeling, more times than not, films have been, and I mean this with so much love in my heart, boring and stagnant. Some of them have terrible coloring. No one's color grading anymore. Some of them have terrible lighting. No one's hiring gaffers anymore. Some of them have sound you can barely hear the dialogue. No one's actually caring about sound design. And obviously, this is not about all films that are coming out today. I love films of today. There's so many movies that have come out in the recent years that are actual, like, fantastic, amazing, spectacular, even some may dare say classic movies. Obviously time will tell, but there's movies that are coming out that are still phenomenal, amazing. Like, this is not, oh my god, there's nothing being made anymore. You just have to look, and nowadays there aren't being that many films made of different genres. We lack a great volume of movies, and as someone who's an aspiring filmmaker, it's frustrating because it's like, put me in, coach, put me in. I'll make a movie that's great. Just give me the money, give me a team, and we'll do it. I don't even need that much money. Just give me a set and I'll make something. Not only has the volume of movies being made significantly lessened, we're lacking thought, we're missing intention, and we are currently in reboot hell. If it's not a reboot, it's a sequel, it's a remake, it's a prequel, it's a live action, or something along the lines. It's at this point torturous. Like, it's every movie nowadays getting made. And there's obviously so much more wrong with film, but these I want to highlight right now to say, like, what is going on? Why are we not really caring about certain things? Obviously, movies aren't going to be made perfectly. The perfect movie does not exist, but I feel like back then when movies were made, directors or productions had more intention when it came to how things were supposed to look, how things were supposed to sound, how things were supposed to feel. And now we're not giving as much thought. I don't know if it's that we don't care to, or if that we think our audience doesn't care and therefore doesn't need it. Because the thing about film and even like television, we are trying to save as much money as possible. If we as a production do not deem it as necessary, we're not really going to pay that much attention to it. Whether it's something that we personally do not care for, or we just think our audience isn't going to really care for. If the audience isn't going to care, why should we include it anyways? Which is terrible. That's so dumb. It's the current age of just brain rotism, I guess, but we're just being treated as if we're really dumb. And even with movies, but I don't play video games, but I've noticed that they'll release stuff half made and they'll be like, well, it's whatever. It's whatever. Because the audience isn't gonna care. Like, yes, but also like they're not gonna throw a fit about it. So who cares? Which is, again, hell. But I just want to break into why I currently think we are in this hell. I'm a filmmaker. I'm an aspiring filmmaker. Okay, so I'm going to break it down into certain categories just to make this more cohesive, which first it being genres. So the issue with making different genres of movies, long story short, no one wants to spend money. The lack of variety has to do with the end of DVD and VHS and the start of streaming. Movies back then did not always have to depend on box office sales. When pitching a movie, you didn't have to necessarily pitch it to be a big box office hit, because most of the time DVDs and VHS sales would fulfill the rest of, recovering of the budget of the movie. When pitching a movie, you didn't necessarily have to depend on box office sales, because most of the time DVDs and VHS sales would make up for the rest of the budget and then some, as well as the help of rentals, which were Blockbuster, Redbox, and Netflix back in the day. I'm going to give you some examples of movies that we all consider classics. We know them as classics that did not do good in their box office. Ooh, it's lightning. Don't know if you saw that. To give you some examples, that lightning really distracted me. To give you some examples of movies that we all deem classics that did not do good in the box office at all. Like, at all. They made up for it in DVD and VHS sales and are now again considered classics. We have Fight Club, with a budget of $63 million, made $37 million in box office. With Blade Runner, it had a budget of $28 million and had $6 million in the box office. Willy Wonka, the 1971 one, had a budget of $3 million and just barely made it over. It had $4 million. Scott Pilgrim versus the World, $85 million and only made $49 million in the box office. Rocky Horror Picture Show had a budget of $1.6 million and then only made $22,000 off of it, and it was pulled from theaters because it was flopping so bad. So movies that were flopping the box office, these are all movies we consider classics today. And to actually give you a romance movie, because I did say that romance has been lacking in the genres, we have The Notebook. It had opening weekend, made $13 million. The production budget was $30 million, but now has grossed over $117.8 million thanks to DVD and VHS and like rentals like Blockbuster and all that. But with streaming and honestly the end of cable as well, because I mean, think about it, there used to be channels like FX and TNT that would play classic movies literally all day. But because of this, movie companies can't afford to invest in certain types of movies. Movies that wouldn't statistically do good in box office are kind of no longer really being looked at. They simply won't get made if they statistically would bomb at box office, which is scary because when you think about it, a lot of classics would not be made anymore. And obviously, another good factor of this is COVID. Companies nowadays like to be really stingy with what they spend their money on. I just find it hard to believe that a lot of these companies can't afford to make movies, especially when they're investing in really weird movies or investing in weird little projects. Like, I guess I look at HBO and Warner Bros. And really like question what they're doing over there because everything is just a tax write-off. They got rid of Batwoman, even though it's like you already made the movie. But movies like Black Adam get made. Shazam 2 did not need to be made. And movies aren't getting paid the same way that they used to get paid when you would buy a DVD or rent a DVD from, again, Blockbuster, Redbox, Netflix. Anytime, obviously, a DVD would get bought or someone would rent that movie, money would go to the movie. But now with streaming services only have to buy the licensing and the rights of the movie. Most of the time for like a year. Sometimes they have like multiple year contracts, but for the most part, I believe it's a year contract. And they only get paid at the time that they sign the contract, which means that the streaming services are the ones that are honestly setting up how much they're willing to pay for it. You either have to accept the offer that they give you or just have your movie disappear, honestly. And even then, there's movies being made by certain companies like HBO, Netflix, Disney that get canceled and then pulled from their own platform, where it's like, well, where else am I supposed to watch this? You guys also take down any illegal streaming services for those movies and shows, so what else is meant to happen with those shows? But that also means that actors, writers, etc. are not being paid residuals. At least not very often. We've had actors and even musicians before show off the residuals and show that for like the year or for, a couple of months, they got paid 37 cents. Someone got paid like $1.06. It was crazy numbers to really think about. Like, honestly speaking, I would get so pissed off if I got a check for 37 cents. Keep it. Hey, keep it. Try to cash that in and the bank is going to laugh at me. Like, what do you want me to do? I know there's electronic scannings, that's not the point. This is, I guess, speculation. Allegedly, that's honestly why a lot of shows get canceled after the first season nowadays, especially if it does good. Actors, writers, directors, whoever it could be, will try to negotiate a higher price for renewing the show, and companies just don't want to do that, so they cancel it instead. Because honestly speaking, what else could be said about canceling certain shows, especially when they are successful? I remember Annie with an E was they got to 4 seasons and then like randomly canceled it. There's Grand Army that they randomly canceled it. I think it's Generations. There's that show. There's a lot of shows nowadays that people don't even want to start because they're afraid of shows just like being tumbao. Like, what's the point of watching it if you're gonna cancel it after 1 or 2 seasons? But going back into movies, people aren't getting paid the residuals. Streaming is paying filmmakers next to nothing to really have their films there. The only people that are really getting paid are the people that own the rights to the movies, the producers of the movies. Moving on to sets. Sets aren't being built, at least in the traditional way, most of the time. And nowadays, most films, especially big blockbuster films, depend on VFX and CGI for their like overall setting. And I'm not gonna say that, oh my god, we should never do this, blah blah blah. I think VFX work is an art in and of itself. But so is set design. Practical sets, set designs are important as well depending on the film. Obviously, there's certain movies that obviously you have to do VFX and CGI, but sometimes it really doesn't make any sense. So it really does beg the question of like, why do we now depend on VFX? Well, it's because it's easier to take advantage of them. I mean, look, the Writers Union fought against AI, and yet we're still using AI on films and movies. It's like, oh, what was the fight for then? Oh, But it's easier to take advantage of VFX artists because they can get away with paying them less, they can get away with setting harsher deadlines, they can get away with just treating them like shit. But they take advantage of VFX workers that don't really have much else job opportunities to take. So they can only do like the minimal paying job of working on a Marvel movie, working on a Disney movie, working on a big high budget production. They just sadly have less workers' protection, which is again a really scary thing to think about because these are people that are fundamental to film, especially films that are being made nowadays. Marvel and other action movies, other superhero movies, other movies, period, would be nothing without VFX artists. They're being paid dirt, especially when they live in places like LA and New York where shit is expensive. Like, hello? It's just hard to really make a living. Production companies are just going to always take advantage of people that they can take advantage of. Those things have to do with money and production companies being extremely, extremely cheap when they make movies. But what about the other stuff? Why is wardrobe and makeup not really being taken seriously in film anymore? Back then, costume designs, especially when it came to teen movies or young adult movies, they would have intricate outfits and intricate costuming to reflect not only the character, but the way that the character is meant to feel, the way that the character is meant to be portrayed to the audience. But nowadays, especially with movies catered to a younger audience, costuming's just really, oh, what's trendy right now, which honestly really makes the movie seem really dated, especially because movies take time to make. So by the time that the movie released, stuff's already like been changing. Nowadays with fashion, there's been microtrends after microtrends. The world of like popular fashion trends is constantly changing. Macro trends are coming out every week, every month. I don't think films should look at trends of that current year as the end all be all. I think that they should look at fashion as a whole to really think about how their character is supposed to be. Because if you're just dressing them in something that's trendy because you think it'll relate to the audience more, again, stuff is just going to seem really dated. An example I want to give is the Mean Girls movies, and those are two ones that I can actually like side by side comparison to, which is really exciting. I just feel like nowadays costume designers are giving just significantly less thought to their costumes and what they represent for their characters than they did with certain movies. With the recent Mean Girls movie, it was very dated, trendy pieces of like the 2020s. You could tell it was very much filmed between 2021 and 2022 by their like micro trendy clothing, but it didn't really feel like they represented the characters in a right way, and they didn't really seem to really think about actual timeless pieces of how to reflect this character without giving just like trendy clothes. Like, an example specifically is Regina George. Regina George in the 2004 one is dressed very feminine, very chic, still very teenager, but she's wearing stuff that you would think of a queen bee. Whereas I didn't watch Mean Girls, the recent one, the 2024 one, so this is just from what I have seen from trailers and clips and we love Renee Rapp in this house. But her outfits didn't really reflect who Regina George was. I felt like it reflected Renee Rapp as Regina George. Like they gave her more of an edgy look sometimes. She is, more of a queen bee, more like demure. And it felt like with the 2024 one, she felt very just more powerful and more strong. But that wasn't who Regina George was meant to be, She wasn't meant to be like all up in your face. Especially if you're trying to kind of do a remake. It'd be different if it was to be different characters. This has nothing to do with the actors. I know Renee Rapp, I think, did it on Broadway or off Broadway. I don't know where Mean Girls was supposed to be, but the Mean Girls actual musical, I know she was a part of that. There's no way she performed like a diss on the actors. It's just more of like the costume designer. They didn't think about how to actually make Regina George. And I understand that Renee Rapp had some restrictions about what parts of her body she wanted to show. I think you could still reflect Regina George's original style to fit a more, conservative look, not conservative, but like more closed off look. But again, instead we focused on very trendy pieces and made her seem more blunt, and I guess it fit more of a bully look, but that's not what Regina George is supposed to be. Like, yes, she's a bully, but she's supposed to be queen bee type bully. Everyone else loves her, but she's obviously mean. It's supposed to be very... But yes, I do want to give a shout out to Mary Jane Fort, who was the original costume designer of the 2004 Mean Girls. She's done a deep dive on like why she picked the certain pieces for the characters. But certain characters are supposed to reflect certain meanings. And again, I didn't watch the Mean Girls movie, the 2024 one, so I don't have any critiques of like the acting or how the characters are portrayed in that aspect. But costume designs have to do with directors. Directors are the ones that give everyone the role and give everyone, this is what I'm trying to give. Give me something that reflects that. So yes, I can blame the costume designer, but I could also blame the director. Now, what about the lighting? Why is everything so dark? Two reasons. One, everyone wants to give realistic lighting. No one wants to have a light in the front because, oh, it then looks like a movie. When if you are making a movie right and you have the audience immersed enough, it doesn't matter. Back in the day, movies used to be made, and I know, actually, I lied, there's 3 reasons. I'll get into it in a second. But back in the day, they used to use blue lights to reflect that it is nighttime, and it never felt like, oh my god, they're using a blue light. It felt like it was nighttime. It had the audience immersed enough. Whereas now, we don't like using blue light, we don't like using color anyways, which I'll get to in a second. But with wanting lighting to be realistic, it's like if I just wanted to film like this. If I wanted to film like this, which is doable. Like, it doesn't look terrible, but doesn't illuminate anything.
Mind you, the only reason why it still looks good is because I'm still using a type of lighting, daylight, with my window. But directors haven't even been using natural lighting right. They'll use the sun in the back, but then also have a light in the side, and it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. So yeah, let's hire people that know what they're doing.
Lighting just adds to the story. And I feel like nowadays filmmakers either don't really study lighting and don't really know how to apply it to their movies, or they don't care. Again, I've talked about, let me put the light back on, this is irritating me. I already talked about this a little bit briefly, but I'll talk about it a bit more. Wicked. I love Wicked so much. Wicked is amazing. The set design, the acting, the singing, a lot of good notes. But a note that had my partner really not irritated. She was like, can we just enjoy a movie? And I was like, yes, but it's taking me out. The lighting. Why the fuck is the lighting behind them? I can't see them. And John has already talked about this, where he said he wanted to give a realistic look. He didn't want it to feel like a movie, which is what I said before. Nowadays we think of lighting as feeling like movies when it doesn't. It adds. First off, what's wrong with looking like a movie? You're making a movie. It's a movie. Second of all, it's Wicked. There's a green lady and magic. It's not really realistic. You're already testing the balance of realism. I don't think that having a reflector in the front, a light panel in the front, is going to change much of the realism. I will say, I'm not going to say, oh my god, there was never intention with the lighting. There was a scene that Elphaba, when she was singing The Wizard and I, where the lighting was pink and it made it seem like she had an actual normal skin tone, because pink with green, you know, it cancels out, which was an actual good directing choice for lighting. But because of his personal choices, which again, like, that's his personal choice, he was the one that directed it, it's up to him. But there was a lot of times that I wish we were just more careful and intricate with the lighting, and I feel like it could have elevated the movie more. Just my personal opinion. And a lot of people did have this criticism, but again, John was the one that was picked to be the director. I can't say nothing about that. If he wants to have more realistic lighting, that's his choice. But I personally think that having lights does not remove the realism of a movie, but also you're making a movie.
Also, why is the sun always behind them? Why is the sun not in front of the subjects?
The second reason of why we're not, besides just like realistic lighting, is certain movies do have more of a darker undertones, so they do want to give more of an intimate feel. I want to say the Batman movie, specifically the recent one with Robert Pattinson. That movie has a lot of dark scenes in it, but it's also to show how nitty-gritty Gotham is, and obviously that's not the only way you can approach it. Joker also takes place in Gotham, and yet You know, it is well lit, but it's also a different perspective of Gotham. So stuff like that, it's a personal director's choice of like, I want the scene to be dark so you could also focus on certain elements. Like I'll say I wasn't always a big fan of the Batman's choices of being so dark, but sometimes it was really cool. Like there's a scene where he's like fighting people and it's like dark besides guns going off around, and so that kind of illuminates the scene. That was cool. That's cool. And I like choices like that. But sometimes it doesn't really translate, especially in the duller moments where we're adding to the story and it's not really the action. And it can honestly bring the audience out of it and be like, okay, I can't see anything though. And the last, final, third reason is the switch from film cameras to digital cameras. I don't necessarily work the cameras, I do more of the screenwriting, acting. I want to be in directing, but I have to learn more about the camera to know that. So I might be explaining this a bit dumb, but essentially the big difference between the two in ways that they capture lighting is just because of the different technologies. Film cameras capture film on a roll that we all know is sensitive to light. Film cameras excel at capturing the highlights of an image, which is why everything looks brighter. It has a wider dynamic range than digital, which means it can capture more details in both the bright and dark areas of a scene, whereas digital cameras capture film with a sensor. It captures them digitally, which is why it's really great for capturing shadows specifically. Basically, everything is determined by the ISO of a camera, which is a camera setting that measures how sensitive the camera's sensor is to light. Film cameras have a wider range in allowing one to capture more in shadows while still getting usable image in brightly lit areas. Where with digital, once you go white, there's absolutely no image information there other than like bright white. Which sounds like a negative, but the reason why we keep going to digital nowadays is because it's easier to combine lower exposure images with higher exposure images. And with digital, you can immediately check what you've shot to make sure that the image is actually looking good. So essentially, film is more expensive to develop over obviously a digital video. And with technology, you know, editing is really easy to do with digital cameras as opposed to film cameras. Which is kind of my point. We can play around more with digital cameras, but we don't. We don't play around with I'm not really much of an editor, but if you know editing, you know what I mean, like the curves, I'll show it. But you can change the curves to show different highlights, show different shadows, highlight different colors. Now, why are we missing color? I want to say because of like what I previously said before, intention and not really caring, but also wanting realism to fit the scene. Everything's more grayish. I low-key, and this might be a little like shady, might be a little too much for me to say, but I just don't think we're really thinking about how color really can portray a story. Because real life is colorful. I'm tired of everyone acting like we live in a gray world. Maybe it's because I live in South Florida. We live in a colorful world, y'all. There's color everywhere. You just have to open your eyes to see it. Of course, everything's going to be dull if you edit it dull. But I just feel like there's not much thought of how color can portray their story. A good movie that does an amazing job of telling the story through color is La La Land. I just feel like nowadays people just think the audiences are too dumb to understand the subtle things. And I hadn't watched La La Land in a minute, so I did watch Archer Green's video. If you want to have a more in-depth analysis of La La Land, I'd suggest watching his video after this one. But in La La Land, green is a significant color. They don't show it very often. It's to symbolize Sebastian and Mia's relationship when it's going through major moments. Mia wears green when she's leaving her boyfriend. There's green when they're breaking up. Red and blue signify Seb and Mia. Red signifying Seb, blue signifying Mia, but it also is deeper than that. It also signifies when they're thinking about their dreams. Seb wanting to open up a jazz club, Mia wanting to be an actress. They see these colors in tandem when they're thinking about not only each other, but their dreams. Red signifies fulfilling your dreams, while blue signifies the uncertainty of it. It's, you know, between the push and pull of them. Again, color is meant to display a story, and it's amazing when movies get to do that in different ways. I'm not saying that every movie has to, you know, have specific colors mean this and that and the third, but I feel like, you know the joke where everyone's like, oh my god, when English teachers are like, oh, the curtain is blue, which signifies this and that and the third, and people made fun of it because it's like, oh, the blue curtain is just blue. Media literacy is at an all-time low. Sometimes when certain colors are highlighted, it's significant because why mention it? If the curtain being blue is not important to the story, why would I even mention the fact that it's blue? All of this is to say, no one wants to take a chance because the fear of flopping, which is crazy because movies that have come out recently that weren't expecting to be big and then they became really big deals, you know, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Parasite, movies that push the boundaries are wanted, are needed today, and we yearn for it. It was so irritating when I saw Mickey 17. I love it. I love the movie so much. But to see different accounts always being like, oh my god, Warner Brothers gave Bong Joon-ho this much budget and it only made this much in box office right now, this much loss. We don't do that with other movies. We only did it with Bong Joon-ho for some reason. And it was like, trust, he's okay. He is not making movies for the money. Most filmmakers don't make movies for the money. People make film to make art. Like, I don't understand the big fear of like flopping. I understand like, oh, everything's a product nowadays, but it's not like we were promoting Mickey 17. We put it in the Q1 of 2025, knowing damn well by the end of the year, no one's really going to think about it when it comes to award season. The little alien, I forgot what they're called. The little aliens in Mickey 17, we could have done what we did for Shang-Chi and have plushies of the alien. Like, no one thought to get creative with the marketing. Of course not, because we wanted it to flop in the first place. That's another thing. No one promotes movies anymore, and then we're like, oh my god, it flopped. Well, yes, there was the Echo movie where people are like, oh my god, see? You guys don't want original movies. I didn't even know that movie came out. I remember seeing a trailer of it like last year. I thought they were still making it. People were like, oh my god, it's flopping. I'm not gonna go to the theaters to watch a Disney movie. I'm 23 years old. But you're saying it like people knew it even existed. We were promoting the Lilo and Stitch movie to no end, and no one else has heard of the Echo movie, which honestly speaking does look good. Boycott Disney, but still. We're no longer celebrating films just for the art of it. Again, look at the way that publications treated Mickey 17. And also, honestly, the shift in A24. Obviously, a production company is not always going to release good movies, but I feel like they're shifting to more of a mainstream ideology with Death of a Unicorn, the Breakthrough movie starring The Rock. And again, production companies could do whatever the hell they want to. It's just like, what happens to the plot? I feel like A24 was praised because it had unique storytelling. It was a medium-sized company that was giving movies that wouldn't have made it with any other company like Sony, Warner Brothers. They were making them, and they were making them big. Again, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Love Lies Bleeding. I Saw the TV Glow. There's a lot of movies that honestly would not have been made by other companies, and now they're kind of going to like, oh, what would fit the mainstream? Originality is being pushed out in favor of profit because companies don't want to lose money. Companies don't want to take risks. Companies don't want to make art.
Let's be real, the people that are in charge of movies nowadays don't like movies, do not watch movies, point blank period. They don't care for movies.
The actual guy in Warner Brothers hates animation, like, is not really a big movies and TV guy. It's like, of course he's just gonna like throw away anything to get a tax write-off and get more money because he doesn't care, because we're getting people in the CEO positions that don't care. And another thing that actually is also really irritating about films nowadays is the way that social media has affected it. Actors nowadays only get picked because of certain social media followings. Actors and directors have talked about this before, about the fact that they're not really getting picked because of they only have a certain amount of followers on Instagram. Some actors don't even have Instagrams because why would I have it if I don't want it? No, all is said and done, but what can actually be done about this? I would say again, support indie films, support short films. When you see a movie you think is interesting and you think, I'll wait for it on streaming, don't go. The AMCs have cheaper days on Wednesdays. You can go watch a movie on Wednesday for like $7. Go to the movie, support the same way that we say like support small businesses, support creators and support this, support films, support the arts, because If we don't, companies are just gonna be like, okay, bye. Back to making the a billionth live action. I'm in live action now. I actually need it to stop. The movies you guys should be waiting for on like streaming services are the dumb movies. Please stop seeing movies like Minecraft in theaters, like selling out theaters for that. We all know that the movie is objectively bad, but studios are going to keep making objectively bad movies because, hey, as long as it's a meme, people are going to go watch it. We should have had this energy for Sonic 3. We should have had this energy for Sonic 3 at least. If we were going to care about a movie like this, it should have been Sonic 3. I guess just closing thoughts to end this video. I feel like I have rambled in front of a camera long enough for this commentary video. Maybe I'll make a part 2 if film gets worse. Support local films, support your indie films, your short films, support movies directed by people of color, support movies directed by women. If we don't, studios aren't going to really hire them. But yes, that's all the time I have for this week. If you liked it, make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like these. I make videos weekly. I am starting off with actually caring about my content. I'm hoping to pump out actual short films myself, microfilms if you will. Just to start off, follow my social media links down below. I have a TikTok, I have a Twitter, I have an Instagram, I have a Pinterest, I have a Letterboxd. And leave a comment down below, what is your current favorite movie? My current favorite movie, if you didn't already hear me say it, is Sinners. I'm itching to watch it again. I need to go to the theater to watch it again. But it's been, hurricane season just started and it's been raining a lot. So I haven't really had el deseo to like go out. But yes, that's all the time I have for today. Bye, babes. I don't know if everyone saw my I Heart Yojin pin. Waiting for Lusambo.